Hi again, everybody. We're here again live from NECSS 2012 with Hai-Ting, Matt, and Erica, the Scopes Monkey Choir. So, folks, thanks for joining us.
I like how you called us the Scopes Monkey Choir, as though we're actually a choir. And not quite. Wait, we're Scopes Monkey Choir is actually a podcast, a weekly podcast, named after the Scopes Monkey trial. We were musicians, so we just decided one day, we were like, Scopes Monkey Choir, that's a funny name for a podcast. Now we'll have to make a podcast. So Matthew and I do a weekly podcast where we discuss the science of music and sound and some sort of skeptical topics, sometimes in music history, myths that come up about famous musicians, and sometimes just the science of instruments, sound, singing, the neurology of music.
Now, you guys just finished putting on a performance that was absolutely amazing. The crowd here loved it. I loved it. It was essentially putting scientific lyrics to beautiful music. And
or the other way around.
Or the other way around. And how did you come up with the idea of doing that to begin with?
Hai-Ting and I are both musicians, and we both love science, and we were just looking for an excuse to put them together, basically. And it's something that hasn't been done much. Usually, the grand tradition going back, thousands of years, right, is that poetry is set to music. But we're science geeks, and we read about science stuff and magazines and listen to podcasts and everything.
And we find science poetic.
And we were like, this stuff is, yeah, exactly, this is poetic. Like, we'll go back and reread some Sagan because it's beautiful, the way he talks about science. And we're like, well, this should have music too.
And we also really wanted to celebrate the scientific worldview in the way that there's this grand old tradition of, like in the church, of celebrating God with music, but we don't really want to celebrate God of any kind. And we're not equating science with belief or church or God or anything, but we just wanted to celebrate the beauty of this worldview. And so Erica is a pianist, and we're working together on a more theatrical show that actually involves some live science demonstrations and illustrations. It's called Science Fair, and it's in residence at a place called Here Theater, H-E-R-E, down in Soho, and it'll be developed over the next few years. And also we're hoping to bring it to conferences like NECSS and other science conferences around the world as it develops.
And how long have you guys been doing this together?
Was it a year ago that we worked together on the first few songs? And so this is our anniversary being at NECSS, actually. And it's a tremendous journey as a pianist to go from the typical musical community into a scientific community and find it's very different and yet shares a lot of, as you were saying, there's this poetic quality to science that I'm very much falling in love with. And the community is so supportive, and they reach out to us as we're on stage in a way that's very moving. It's a thrill.
Now, if people want to find out more about where you guys are going to be, what you're doing, or listen to the podcast, not these three, they're not the Scopes Monkey Choir, as we now know. But if they want to hear the podcast...
the podcast is, you can get it on iTunes or scopesmonkeychoir.com.
And you can find out more about Science Fair at here.org, HERE.org, and look for current resident programs, or you can go to my personal website, which is haiting.com, HAI-TING. This is the moment when I need my name tag and I don't have it, .com, and look for Science Fair.
Yeah, that.com for me.
Very nice. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and everybody make sure to check out the video of their performance, especially the Love and Fallacies. Was that the name of the song?
Oh yeah, George Robb joined us. Matthew wrote a little nano opera using a whole bunch of puns on logical fallacies, and George Robb learned it over the last 5 days, and we performed it.
And I think it should have been a contest where see how many logical fallacies you can pick out of the song.
That's a good one, yeah.
So try it yourself and see how many you get.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for joining us,
Thanks
everybody.
so much, Chris.